Numbers 20, 8 is one of my favorite passages in the whole Bible. It's very challenging, and it doesn't seem to make sense when you look at it from a cursory point of view. And I think that's why I like it so much. But what I plan to do today is to take it apart bit by bit and go back into other parts of Exodus, and then eventually we can not only provide a logical explanation, we can also get a practical application out of it that mature Christians can use in their walk. So, there's a passage in 1 Corinthians 10:11. It says, "Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come." Now, what's so interesting about this is that Paul is specifically referring to Moses and the Israelites and what they did in the wilderness, that all of those things were written down as an example for our instruction. So what we're going to do now, and this is when Moses struck the rock, when God told him to speak to the rock. The first time he struck the rock and got water out of it. The second time God said, speak to it. And he struck it instead, and God said, you can't go to the promised land now. And it's kind of a weird passage if you just take it at face value, but we're not going to do that. We're going to dive deeper into it. We're going to understand it. So here's Numbers 28 through 13. It's in the ESV. It says, "Take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock," it says speak to it in like the King James and others, "tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water." So God told Moses, take the staff, take the congregation, take your brother, and go to this rock, and you tell it to bring water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord, as he commanded him. Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, "Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and the livestock. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and through them he showed himself holy." Now, if you look at the whole story, I mean, for 40 years, Moses had to put up with these people. They grumbled, they griped, they bickered. There was one time when God was going to destroy them all and just start all over. Moses was like, "No, no, no." He interceded for them. He was just going to kill them all and just start over with Moses. And Moses begged with God, and he relented. So, and they would grumble, and he would go to God over and over and over. And God told Moses, "You tell that rock, you speak to that rock, and make water come out of it." And Moses struck it with that staff. And God said, "Nope, you can't go in the promised land now." So what is going on? So we've already established Moses struck the rock instead of speaking to it. God told Moses to bring Aaron and the congregation and the rod with him. Now, Aaron was the one who spoke for Moses, and the rod was the instrument that Moses performed the miracles. See, what God was asking Moses to do was to step out in faith. This was a huge step for Moses. To ask Moses to speak is no small thing. As a matter of fact, we're going to look at it here in a minute, but the only reason Aaron was even around was because Moses' fear of public speaking. As a matter of fact, to say that he was self-conscious, that's an understatement. God wanted to send Moses by himself to Egypt to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go, and this is what Moses said to God. This is Exodus 4:10 through 14 ESV. But Moses said to the Lord, "O my Lord, I am not eloquent either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue." Then the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak." But he said, "O my Lord, please send someone else." Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron your brother the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart." Now, even after God told Moses that he made man's mouth and he would speak for Moses, Moses had such a lack of confidence in his speech that he asked God to send somebody else. This is one of the funniest passages in the Bible, but it truly demonstrates Moses' complete terror of speaking. You know, the amount of faith it was going to take for Moses to speak to that rock in front of the whole congregation was huge. Now, if you notice, like I already pointed out, God specifically told Moses to bring the staff and to bring Aaron along with the congregation to the rock that he was supposed to speak. Now, if you look back in the Exodus story, the staff, this is the staff that performed all the miracles. It's the staff that turned into a serpent and it swallowed the serpent of the Pharaoh's magicians. It's the staff that parted the Red Sea, and it's also the staff that brought water from the rock the first time. This was the instrument that Moses used to make miracles. But yet, God didn't say, use that staff that you've relied on, that you've come to trust so well. He just said to bring it with him. Moses was also told to bring Aaron, who spoke for Moses to the Pharaoh and to the Israelites. Aaron was Moses' mouthpiece. See, God's setting the stage for Moses to step out in faith. He was getting ready to demonstrate his power through Moses' weakness. He's going to show Moses, my power is not in a stick, and my power is not in a word. It is my words. You know, in in the hilarious encounter where Moses asked God to send somebody else, God conceded to Moses the first time by sending Aaron to speak for him. The second time he wasn't so gracious. This time he said, the first time he conceded, he said, okay, I'll send Aaron. The second time he told him to speak and he didn't do it, he said, nope, you don't get to go to the promised land. That I think there's a reason. I think there's something we can learn here. In the first encounter, God had not yet proven himself to Moses. Moses didn't even know. He just saw this. This is all the way back in the burning bush. This is Moses' first ever encounter with God. Okay? So he doesn't know. He doesn't even know his name. He's like, tell me what your name is. And he says, God says, just tell him I am that I am, or I am who I am. In other words, they don't know me, but they will. But the second time he tells him to speak to the rock, think about this. God had performed many miracles for the Israelites. And Moses should have learned from these miracles to have enough faith to trust in God. Now let's look at this. He parted the Red Sea. Well, of course, the 10 plagues. He did all the 10 plagues, including the Passover. He parted the Red Sea. He made the water that was bitter drinkable. He gave them manna. He gave them quail. And he brought water out from the rock for the first time. And here's the lesson. God is going to expect more from us regarding faith and stepping into more uncomfortable situations the more he has proven himself to us. We can learn from the mistake that Moses made and apply that to our own faith journey. Now, the mature Christian, he's going to be called to walk by faith and not by sight in certain situations. And it's our responsibility to watch for the opportunities and to step into them faithfully. And here's the lesson. If we're going to get where God ultimately wants us to go in this life, there will come a time when we have to step out in faith. Moses was saved. This didn't cost him salvation. He went to heaven. In Jude 9, Satan actually contended with Michael over Moses' body. So there's no doubt where Moses is. He's in heaven. This cost him his earthly prize, his earthly destination, his promised land. And that's what our promised land is. It's going to require a step out in faith. Just the fact that I'm speaking here, taking this video, this recording, is stepping out in faith. I don't know if you understand how much I don't want to do this. I love explaining the Bible, but I don't like the public eye. I don't like people seeing me. I don't like people being able to say snarky things or make rude comments or think I'm, saying something stupid or think I look funny or whatever. I just don't like to put myself out there. But it's what I have to do. I'm trying to get these books published, and to get books published, you have to have a platform. To have a platform, you got to get followers. To get followers, you got to have to say a decent message. So this is just stepping out in faith, getting out of my comfort zone, and to do things. And I'm not even 100% sure that this is what God wants me to do. But, it's kind of like before I went to prison, I bought this Bible study software. It's called Logos. when COVID was going on and I first got saved, I came across this guy named Michael Heiser. And since I didn't have a job and they just made everybody stay home, I watched hours and hours and hours of this guy. And he became my favorite. And he explained things in the Bible that just made sense. And he went to the interesting passages. And well, anyway, he got pancreatic cancer. And he worked at this Logos software company, and they put on a special, and you could buy. And I'd always wanted. I'd see him using that software in his presentations, and I'd be like, "Man, that'd be really cool to have." Well, it turns out that it was close to $3,000, and I had a feeling that the Lord wanted me to do that, so I spent $3,000. It was actually 22, but then I got a preaching course, and then I got $500 or $600 worth of books to do the preaching course. So it came close to 3,000, and it didn't make sense. It's like, Lord, I could really use this money when I get out, and it's just going to sit here dormant for 2 years while I'm in here. But hey, okay, I'm going to step out on faith, and if I'm wrong, then let me know. And so I ended up buying it, and I loved it, and I ended up preaching uh, about 8 to 10 messages before I went in, and it sat for 2 years. And when I got out, I started studying actually Ephesians 6:11, and it said, "Put on the full armor of God that you might be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." And I hadn't I'd seen the full armor of God, but I'd never seen what the wiles of the devil was. And so I started doing a deep dive on that. And when I started doing that deep dive, I got hit by a crazy, crazy spiritual attack. Um, I got taken back to court for bills that I hadn't paid. Um, I was going to have to work a lot more extra hours. My stepdad um, lost his toes and had to be put in the nursing home. And my mom, who's a double amputee, I had to start mowing their yard, and I had to start helping do stuff, take off her garbage, and cleaning up her house. And then my dad had just had cancer surgery, and I was trying to help him around here and get him going back. And then I was trying to be a dad to my kids because I hadn't seen them for 2 years. And my daughter, she got on this website that, and with inappropriate with this little girl, and then a little boy pushed my daughter from behind into a railing and cut her face all open. And I never even realized it, and I told my pastor what all was going on, and he's like, "You are just being hit with spiritual attack." And I thought, you know what, I don't think the devil likes me looking up the wiles of the devil very well. So I dug in even harder. And after that little boy pushed my daughter, I told my daughter that I forgive the little boy. And I told my son, don't retaliate against the little boy. And my ex-wife was going to sue him, and I said, I don't want no part of it. I just forgive him. He's probably got problems. And well, when I did that, I got flooded with all kinds of information about the wiles of the devil. I mean, so much that I didn't know what to do with it. I thought I was just going to do like a Wednesday night message, and then it was too much, and then I was going to do it like a 7-part series, and it's like, Lord, I can't. What do you want me to do with all this? There's too much. And what I heard was write a book, so I started writing a book, and then I felt led to write another one about my life, and so I've written 2 books by stepping out on faith. I took I took the job back at Gibson County Coal because when I forgave the GM and went and talked to him in the pizza place, he went that he was retired and he went back out to the mine and talked to them, and they called me to offer me a job. So I felt like I need to step out in faith and take that job, And one of those things that I learned through all that, I took it to my pastor and I said, I don't know what to do. I said, the place where I work at, they gave me a job when I needed one for court, and then they hired me back when I got out of prison. They promised me a job, and I feel like a traitor if I leave. And he said, well, where's your heart telling you to do? And I said, it's telling me to go back to that Gibson County because I feel like I'm being led there. And I told him all the positives and how it was going to help out my family. And he said, well, it's been my experience that I need to just make a decision and then take it to the Lord and say, this is my decision, Lord. If that's wrong, please let me know. And I learned something very important that has helped me from not being undecided. So now that's what I offer to you. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to step out in faith and you got two options, you're just like, Lord, just choose the one that you think that you're supposed to. Be like, Lord, this is the one that I'm gonna go with. That's what we can learn from Moses. He had seen God do all the miracles in his life, and that's the thing about me. I'd seen God deliver me from addiction. I'd seen him take my court sentence and knock it down where things just fell in perfect place. I saw get jobs that I wasn't supposed to have, get tax checks that were bigger than what I thought. And he proved himself to me over and over and over again. And I learned to listen to that voice. And it seemed like, the stepping out in